Another wide receiver who's acting erratically or getting under people's skin. He's not exactly T.O. He's JJ, Jauan Jennings. He blocks people hard. Apparently, he talks trash after the game. Shelby Harris was just irate, called him a name, and said that he was saying things that a man should never say to another man, and then hiding behind the offensive line. This seemed to happen when Malik Collins was down on the ground, about to be carted off the field with a serious injury. Not sure what exactly Jauan Jennings said, or if it was directed at Collins or about Collins. Afterward, Myles Garrett also spoke about it at the post-game press conference and said, like, I don't know how he was raised. I don't know why so many professionals think that Jauan Jennings is like beyond the pale with the things he's saying on the field. What do you make of this?
Okay. First of all, we don't know what he said.
Mm-mm.
Okay. So we're out there. We don't know what he said.
But there are like repeated incidents. It was last week too. We got punched in the nuts and he punched the guy back. It was last season in Arizona. It was in the NFC Championship game against Detroit. That's 4 incidents off the top of my head where a guy just lost it with him.
Okay. So if you're a 49er fan, you say, boy, I like him. He's so competitive. You know, he sees the other team as the enemy. That's the kind of guy we want. Okay. I got that. You know, Jerry Rice was very competitive. I never knew that he got into it with other players. I never knew that Steve got into it with other players from other teams. I think it doesn't speak well for you when players around the league don't approve of you.
Yeah.
Remember, these players know each other. Some of them played against each other in college. Some of them have the same agents. They know each other.
Malik Collins was a 49er last year. He and Jauan Jennings were teammates last year.
Yeah. So if it's sort of more than one team, if it's around the league that they respect competitiveness, but they don't respect boorishness. They don't respect cheap shots. And if that's what is becoming the consensus around the league, it makes you wonder about Jauan Jennings. Yeah. It does. Now, again, I've never met the guy, Iggy. I'm never going to meet the guy. But I'm going to say something really corny, okay? What about sportsmanship? I mean, is there no such thing as sportsmanship anymore? At the end of a football game, they embrace you can see it. The clock runs out. The offensive linemen who've been knocking heads with the defensive linemen all day, they embrace. It means, I respect what you did. I respect who you are. And we got out of it whole. It's how boxers are at the end of a fight, too. And we got out of it whole. I don't think they're embracing Jauan Jennings. And it makes you wonder.
Yeah, it seems like he's verbally going below the belt, which is why that other player physically went below the belt with Jauan Jennings, right?
I love it.
And it's interesting, the Niners say they love Jauan, and Kyle Shanahan's kind of responsible for this stuff. He's the head coach. And when he's asked about Jauan doing this stuff, he's like, nah, you don't understand. Jauan is just playing to the whistle. And, a lot of these defensive backs aren't used to this, and he's just playing football, and he's a football player. And that's sort of how Kyle explains it. But then you have guys like Shelby Harris saying like, nah, it's not about him blocking to the whistle. It's about the things he's saying on the field, particularly, I guess, while someone's really injured. That's a whole different thing. And, the Niners didn't give Jauan Jennings that contract extension. He might not be on the team next year. You wonder if they like him, but there's certain parts of him and his personality and his game that they're not fully embracing.
We'll never know it, Iggy, but it would be nice to know how the majority of the guys in his locker room look at him. We'll never know. You're not there privately. You're there with the other media. My impression, again, of Jauan Jennings is when it suits him, he can stand at his locker, especially after games, and talk and be nice. When it doesn't suit him, you can't see him. You can't find him, right? That's my impression of the guy. I've never liked that. Joe Montana and we never really got along that well. But Joe was at his locker after every game. Joe was at his locker if he won or if he lost. And his issue was not with the media. It was at a particular time with me and Ira Miller. And I respect that. I understand that. But Joe never forgot to talk or refused to talk. He wasn't moody in that way. He was a stand-up guy. I don't see Jauan Jennings being that way. And I never heard that Joe said personal things. He might have said, "We're going to beat you," or "We'd see you in the Super Bowl," or whatever, or "We're going to the Super Bowl." He said to Dallas. But I don't see him ever taking a cheap shot. So, it's not my problem. I don't know Jauan Jennings. I don't play against him, but I generally like to be around men who are gentlemen.
Yeah, and it seems like he's hurting his reputation amongst his peers right before he's gonna hit free agency. I mean, I know Niner fans think it's cool, but he's probably not coming back. He could be on the Cincinnati Bengals next year, the Green Bay Packers, and there could be players on that team that hate him right now. So I mean, it's not like he's a first round pick who runs a 4.4 and has 1,000 yard seasons, and you just want him on the team no matter how he acts. Like this is a former seventh round pick who he's in his late 20s, almost 30, and he's got to make himself valuable. He has to show that he's worth it for a team. And I think he's cost himself a lot of money with his whole season.
I'm going to go on with this. I'm thinking, how would other coaches or owners respond to his behavior? Again, we don't know what he said. Bill Walsh, who I knew pretty well, I believe would have taken him aside and say, "What did you say? What'd you say?" And he may or may not have told Bill. And Bill, if he thought it was really crummy, would say, "It's not how a 49er acts. We don't want teams hating us. We want teams to respect us and fear us. We don't want them to hate us. Don't do it anymore." Or write him a note and apologize. But I'm going to give you two others who would have different reactions. Jim Harbaugh or Al Davis. Their attitude was, "I don't give a shit what he says." Iggy, I'm right about Harbaugh. His attitude would be, "We're playing. It's between the players. I don't care." And Iggy, I don't know which attitude is right. I know I would prefer Bill's, but who's Al Davis and Jim Harbaugh are important football people. And I think that they would be with Jennings. What do you think, Iggy?
I think they wouldn't want Jauan Jennings bringing bad attention onto the team.
Okay.
I mean, Jerry Rice didn't act like this.
Yeah.
He was as competitive as Jauan Jennings. He didn't act like this. This is like diva behavior to me, and I think it's interesting how much the Niners have had this from wide receivers recently, from Jauan to Brandon Ayuk to Deebo Samuel. Just a lot of bad behavior that have like players putting themselves over the team. Seems like to me, and I think we often talk on this show about the personalities of positions. Wide receivers are some of the toughest, and I think maybe you don't want to go into business with them often. You don't want to spend a lot on wide receivers because how do you know it's not going to end up like this? I mean, Kendrick Bourne's a happy-go-lucky guy, but so often wide receivers end up surly and upset and pouting or something. I don't think you need it, and you're spending $30 million a year for that.
Well, you're right. They've currently got Ayuk and Jennings.
Yep, that didn't
I'm
work.
gonna I'm gonna follow up with Harbaugh, and you were there. I wonder if you remember when he coached the Niners. Jim Harbaugh used to yell and scream all the time at the officials. So he used to have an in-person Monday news conference, not like Kyle, which is on the phone. And I used to love it because I loved his personality. So I said, we were there. I said, "You yell at the officials so much. Do you ever consider that you wouldn't do that?" And he looked at me. He said, and he's so smart, Iggy. He said, "Lowell, are you saying I should change my deportment?" And he used the word deportment. And I said, "I guess I am." And Iggy, he laughed in my face. Do you remember
Yes, he
that
did.
day? He
Yes, he
laughed
did.
in my face like I'll act
Yeah,
any goddamn way I want to act. And I kind of loved it.
I kinda liked it too. Do you remember that time when Clay Matthews hit Colin Kaepernick, like, late out of bounds, like, 13 years ago, and I think Joe Staley ran over to defend the quarterback. I think Clay Matthews slapped Joe Staley in the face mask.
Yeah.
And like the next day, Harbaugh was asked about it, and he was like, "Man, if you're gonna throw a punch in the NFL, bring some knuckles. Don't just open hand slap." Like he just called him a, I thought it was
A
pretty
wuss.
funny.
A
A
wuss.
wuss.
Yeah.
A wuss. Yeah.
If you use knuckles on a helmet, you'll break your knuckles.
Yeah.
You never want to punch a guy in the helmet, but it's true. His attitude was it wasn't a good punch.
Yeah. So what I want to say before we move on is Niners in the future, you got to have a really good reason to give a second contract to a wide receiver. They're tough. It's not easy to go into business with them. You want guys like Ricky and Kendrick who are cheap and on rookie contracts and happy-go-lucky, and then I feel like what you should be paying going into business with tight ends. Tight ends. They're cheaper, and they seem a little bit more down to earth. You could do a lot with them. They block too. I would say more tight ends, fewer wide receivers. It's a thought.
Iggy, and here's why they're more down to earth, because they're part of the time offensive linemen. And offensive linemen are the most intelligent and the most down-to-earth players on any football team. And they're a hybrid. Part of them is an offensive lineman. That's why you can go into business with them. I love tight ends. I've had so many tight ends that I've loved to talk to. Brent Jones.
Can you imagine that Brandon Ayuk, $30 million a year, George Kittle, 20? Kittle's like the greatest player ever, and Brandon Ayuk is like a very good wide receiver for a couple of years, and he makes 50% more? Forget the wide receiver market. It's like buying a Rolls Royce. Why do you need that Rolls Royce? It's a vanity purchase.
Yeah, and also Kittle is a little older and he gets hurt now, but he's never a problem. People like him. He's never a problem.
Nope. And also, he's like 32 and he hasn't regressed at all. As opposed to wide receivers, by the time they're 30, it's usually downhill.
Especially if they're speed receivers and they begin to lose it.
Yep. David Trinidad says, if I was stranded on a cold night with no jacket and the only thing available was a Kyle Juszczyk jersey, would you put it on?
I'd burn it. I'd burn it and make and get warm.
That's the right answer. DBZ Warlord says Purdy has a better QBR than Stafford. Well, la dee da. B.A. Castillo says,
take Purdy then.
Yeah. Lowell, do you believe the Niners can run the table and capture the number 1 seed?
Okay, we're going to actually talk about this later. Is that okay?
Tuned. Yeah. Ernie says, champions behave like champions.
I love that.
That sounds like a John Woodenism. Brian Carltini says, bench Brock if you want a chance. Waste of so much money.
He played very well yesterday.
He did. The instant reaction show last night revealed that even our team reporters are injured this season. Grant is playing through it. Yeah, I limped out there.
It worries me, that thing. I've seen it. It worries me.
It's terrible. Big Primo says, guys, what is extraordinary about this team? Special teams. Sky Moore.
Okay, hold on. 9-4.
The schedule?
I'm not saying the schedule. I'm saying the record. 9-4 is a hell of a record. I didn't think they'd be there.
A hell of a schedule. The special teams, a hell of a special teams. The defensive coordinator is a hell of a defensive coordinator. The offensive play caller is a hell of an offensive play caller. They got two quarterbacks. A lot of teams don't have one.
They have 2 very good quarterbacks.
They have the best tight end. One of the best tight ends ever.
Yeah, they do.
They do.